Did you know the key to vibrant health and sustainable living is closer than you think? Welcome to the Nassau Health Food Store Organic Living Podcast, your weekly guide to Amelia Island's best-kept organic living secret. Brought to you by Nassau Health Food Store by Steve Adams. This podcast is here to help you discover farm-fresh produce, holistic wellness tips, and practical ways to live a healthier, more natural life. All right, here on beautiful Amelia Island, whether you're a longtime local or new to the island, we are here to inspire you to embrace organic living. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode of Amelia Island's Organic Living Secrets. And if you're ready to experience the organic difference, visit us at Nassau Health Food Store in Amelia Island. Your body and the planet will thank you.
Dr. Kessler, welcome to the Nassau Health Foods Organic Living Podcast this week.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Yes. Well, today we're going to talk about something that it seems like, if I recall you saying, a lot of the people on Amelia Island are very interested in their brain health. You want to expand on that a little bit from your conversations, talking to different people, and then we'll jump into it.
Absolutely. So we're talking about something that is very relevant, not just for Amelia Island and Florida, but worldwide. Mm-hmm. And on Amelia Island, as part of Nassau Health, I do give free speeches, to the community where we get together. And I did a survey, and wouldn't you think that over 90% of the people on Amelia Island said brain health is their number one concern?
Wow, interesting. Well, just so you know, as a little teaser here, my son works for a company called the Brainovation Network out of Silicon Valley in San Francisco, and they've approached us to have a brain health center in our store. And we already have the core 6 supplements that they wanted to promote, but our Amber in our store will get some specialized training. So that's something down the road that's coming that we'll tie you into as well. Well, today's subject is how do we take care of our brain as we age? Maybe, do you want to talk a little bit about maybe not necessarily specific statistics, but what are the trends right now in brain health overall and cognitive disease that you see? Because the thing people should know is Dr. Kessler's been through some very specialized training through a Dr. Dale Bredesen in California, who's widely recognized as the world's renowned expert on prevention of cognitive disease. So you have that training. Maybe talk about what you're seeing.
Yeah, actually, first we always want to understand why we want to do something. And mm-hmm. For me personally, my dad was a doctor, and my dad actually had Parkinson's disease. And my mother was diagnosed way back when with a very, very benign, fortunately, very benign brain tumor. Mm-hmm. So brain health has always been very important to me. And when we think about, over the years, more and more people are noticing early signs of cognitive decline. And what's interesting is the number one thing that is out there now in the medical community. I am Mayo Clinic trained, of course, but I'm also certified in functional medicine, natural medicine. The number one topic is vascular health. So what this means is that we have arteries in our body that mm-hmm. also feed our brain. Our brain is like this network that is supplied by arteries. And what we want to do is to protect our blood vessels because they are our brain's lifeline.
Right.
And what most people don't realize is that the brain uses also about 20% of your body's blood supply. So whenever the blood vessels can become inflamed or stiffen, or for example, when people have high blood pressure that is uncontrolled, then your brain is one of the very first organs to actually suffer.
Mm. I recall from reading some of Dr. Bredesen's books, there's kind of like 3 big buckets or pathways that lead people down that road. Do you want to maybe describe those quickly? And in all fairness to Dr. Kessler, everybody, he doesn't get a lot of time to prep these. He's just doing this completely off the top of his head.
No, that's totally fine. I think nowadays what's really nice in the age of AI, it's very important that we keep things human.
Yep. Yep.
I think what I really want to share with the audience on these podcasts is also personal experience from
Yeah.
patients I've seen,
Sure.
because people remember stories like my dad, who had Parkinson's,
Yeah,
for example.
right.
But for those who are not familiar with Dr. Bredesen, basically the idea is that so he has written a few books. One of them is called The End of Alzheimer's. So Alzheimer is a neurodegenerative condition that affects memory. And a second book, of course, was written, The End of Alzheimer Program. And of course, he advises and offers things, for people to purchase. But the first book really caught my eye because he talks about a roof on the top of your house. So your brain is this roof, and the brain, this roof can have 36 holes. So if we think about medicines for Alzheimer's, there has been really nothing new that has come out to treat Alzheimer's, and the medicines are for the most part completely, they basically just don't work. People still have Alzheimer's. So over many years, and also very importantly clinical trials, they have shown that there are these pathways. For example, there's different types of Alzheimer's. One Alzheimer could be related to inflammation, for example. One type of Alzheimer is related to diabetes. In fact, for those who don't know, Alzheimer is, for some patients who have this, they have type 3 diabetes. So there's type 1, type 2, and type 3 for the brain.
Yep.
And then there's a final pathway that talks about environmental toxins, because, as we think about the blood vessels supplying our brain, then the environment, unfortunately, is getting more toxic by the minute.
Yeah.
And it has been proven via testing. This is something he does scientifically, and I've done with my patients also, what these toxins are. So that's why we have to take a very personalized approach to somebody who says, you know what, I'm not remembering things the way I used to.
Right.
Very dangerous. And if you don't take this serious, and if you say, oh, you're just normal, you're just getting older, that's the worst thing you can tell somebody.
Yeah. Wow. Those are big. Yeah. And it's and blood sugar regulation is a huge problem. I saw a statistic recently, 98 million Americans either have diabetes or they're pre-diabetic. And that's one of those three pillars or those three pathways. Yeah, and something I've been wanting to share with you, and I'm just going to say it on the podcast. I just got off a Zoom call with an MD from Cambridge in the UK. This is separate from that conversation we were having a minute ago before we came on of the other person from the UK. They have validated clinically a 10-minute test you can take digitally. And it is the most sensitive test in the world. They're able to predict 10 years in advance if somebody's starting to show signs. So I'm definitely going to want to share that with you for your practice. And then I want to offer it in the store for people that they can do this. So, okay, let's transition now. We both you live on the island. I used to. There's a lot of people on the island that are 55 to 80. They worked in the Northeast or the Midwest or somewhere, and they came there, and that's why it's such a cool place, because so many people come there and they make new friends. And the brain, you're losing your ability to relate with people and to have cognition is probably the worst case scenario for people. And I don't think people want to lose that quality of life they have of going to the beach and walking downtown for Dickens Festival and all those kind of fun things. Let's get into what can they do, Dr. Kessler?
Besides
absolutely. Spend 20 grand with some fancy program. Yeah.
No, I think first of all, to respect everybody's time, I want to share some practical tips. I'm going to share 3 quick practical tips.
Yep.
And then I'm going to end with a story.
Perfect.
Of one of my patients that I think the listeners will appreciate. So the 3 things I would like to share is tip number one is we want to protect our blood vessels because I mentioned they are our brain's lifeline. So when we look at high blood pressure, the first thing we want to do is we want to know our numbers. So if you have not checked your blood pressure recently, go out there, don't go to your doctor's office. Of course, you could do that, but just go pick up a simple home blood pressure monitor, track it over a week or two, and you want to make sure that you consistently check it, and then you take an average, of the readings, and usually around 120, the top number, over about 70 to 80 is really considered, normal. And secondly, when it comes to blood pressure, then blood pressure is also related to stress. So we all have seen somebody with a very angry face. Maybe their face is red. They look like they're about to explode. Angry, perhaps. We all know. We've all seen people like that. But here we tell people, why don't you cool off? Why don't you take a minute to sit down and breathe, right? So breathing. Most people don't breathe well. Most people don't rest well. These are like simple tips. But the scary thing with high blood pressure is that it can be silent. So a lot of people are running around with numbers that they think are okay, so know your numbers. That's tip number one. Tip number two is food, right? So food is medicine. We've all heard that a million times, but feed your brain also with intention, right? So it's not just what we eat, but it's also how we eat. When was the last time you sat down with a friend or with a family and had a conversation without your phone, right? So eat well, focus on anti-inflammatory foods, nutrient-dense foods, color, right? So when I walk on the beach, actually earlier we went to the beach, we had a storm this morning. Now we have this beautiful rainbow. Rainbow has 8 colors, or 7 colors, I should say. And there are 7 days in the week. You may have, I mentioned this before, but eat your colors because the brain is very high in demand of the metabolism. And if you eat red, orange, green, yellow, blue, indigo, and violet on a regular basis, this will give you all the anti-inflammatory colors that you need. And research has shown if you engage in the community, talk to a friend, talk to a stranger. Hey, how's your day? Who are you? Introduce yourself, That is so
social
wonderful.
Social engagement.
Yeah. And of course, if you're worried about your cognition and you're embarrassed, talk to somebody and say, what? I heard this podcast and I know that there are some things I can do, but engage. The brain loves that. Tip number 3, sleep, right?
Wow, huge.
So I know that you recently had another guest on the podcast where we talked about sleep, but there is a there is a chemical called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, and BDNF is important because one of the things that can happen with early cognitive changes is that the brain can shrink. You can actually measure this, you can image the brain, you can see it, right? But the brain can also be shaped, it can grow. These connections, we call them synapses, they can grow if we sleep well. And sleep is not optional, right? So you have to prioritize sleep because at nighttime is when we rest and relax. We also detox, and it's what we call our brain cleaning cycle. So here, sleep is really not a luxury. It is a very biological necessity. Should you sleep 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours? The jury is not fully out on that. What's most important is consistent, that you go to bed before midnight, get up early, get some, beautiful sunlight. Early sunlight right on the beach, for example. And when you do this, research has shown that good sleep also improves blood pressure. You feel good when you're rested. Your stress
improves blood
down.
sugar regulation
exactly.
too. Yeah. Well,
Exactly.
in one of the books I wrote, National Sleep Foundation did a meta study
Yep.
of all major sleep doctors across the world. It was between 7 and 8 hours of being in bed, between
Yeah.
7 and 8 hours of sleep opportunity, which
Yeah.
will lead hopefully to about 6 to 6.5 hours of actual sleep.
Yeah. And I worked with many good renowned specialists, and nowadays there's all these like fancy gadgets and whatnot. Go back to nature and say,
Right.
is it time? Do I feel tired? Go to sleep, go lie
Yep.
down, have a ritual, keep your bedroom cool, get your rest,
Yeah.
versus, people that are always on their phone and,
Yeah.
addicted to the screen. And all this is terrible for the brain health. Does all that make sense?
It does. Yeah. Yeah. It does. And when you talk about these three areas, Dr. Kessler, you're actually hitting on inflammation, type 3 diabetes, and toxins. You're hitting on all three of them because the rainbow colors are going to lower inflammation. It's going to regulate
Yeah.
your sugar, and
Yeah.
you're going to detox well.
Yeah. Well, so what I want to end this podcast
Yeah.
with is a story, like I promised. And I want to leave all the listeners with the most hopeful message in brain science today, a concept called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity means your brain is not a fixed, declining organ. It can build new pathways, it can strengthen existing connections, and it can adapt no matter if you're 40, 60, or 80 years young, right? So every time you learn something new, you move your body, you nourish, you manage your blood pressure, you sleep, you're actively telling your brain to grow. Now, I had, as a patient, and I know you know this because you and I work together, but
Yeah.
I had a patient, an executive who I actually knew the wife, and the wife reached out and he signed up to work with us, and he had loss of executive function. Very very embarrassing. He couldn't run his company, losing money, cannot compute numbers very easily, forgetting people's names, and he was only at the time early 60, like 61 years old.
Yep.
And what we did, right, we went through the basics. Hey, how's your blood pressure? Blood pressure was good. How's your food? Food was okay, but sugar was an issue, so we
Yep.
fixed that. Sleep, he also was found to have sleep apnea, so we discovered that. It was treated. But what was most interesting, because as you know, I used to work at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention.
Yeah.
I always ask people about potential toxins. And what I heard was that he used to work in a building where there was mold. And I
Okay.
said, well, isn't that interesting? So I did some testing, and wouldn't you know that quite a few mold markers were high. These are called mycotoxins.
Yeah.
And then I told him, look, here's undeniable proof. Sure, you have some blood sugar issues, you have some sleep apnea issues, but the mycotoxins are one of those holes we talked about, right?
Yeah. In the roof. Yeah.
Yep. And why don't we fix that? And I gave him some medicine, some nutritional support, some supplement support. We tested him, and wouldn't you know, and this, on top of that, he was also diagnosed with mood changes, bipolar on top of that. He was
Wow.
on all these terrible medicines to stabilize him. But long story short, after a very short time period of about 6 months, he regained full executive function
Wow.
off the bipolar meds. He says, his wife actually says, I've never seen my husband so calm. He's not like a yo-yo, up and down. That's a powerful testimony.
Right there. Alone. Yeah.
So the message here is, if you are noticing early signs and you're concerned, or maybe somebody in your life is concerned, and you think, oh, I'm just getting older, why don't you talk to somebody,
Yeah.
Talk to somebody who knows. Maybe they've done some extra training, do some testing. But first, go back to those 3 tips: nutrition, blood pressure, sleep. Make sure the basics are done. But then also look into some other areas. I think if we become aware of this, then we can catch some of these issues much sooner and not later in life, like my dad when he had Parkinson's, and I think things could have been done much, much sooner.
Yeah. Well, tak это почему я обучаю русский язык. I just said that's why I'm learning the Russian language, because I'm trying to challenge my brain all the time and learning. But that's a great story. It just shows you don't accept these conditions, because there's a lot of things that you deal with as a physician that mimic cognitive decline that really aren't yet. I mean, it could. If that patient that you're talking about had done nothing for 10 more years, would he have fallen potentially into cognitive disease officially?
Well, so the answer is it really depends, so you can,
right.
Because, there's a wonderful thing that maybe some listeners know about, correlation versus causation.
Yeah.
And I think that the big problem nowadays in medicine is that there are too many people who still believe that one thing causes one thing. And if you fix this one thing, then everything is better.
Right.
Obviously, that's not true, because our human body is so complex.
Yeah.
And that's why, when they looked at the clinical studies that, in fact, this year, Dr. Bredesen did one of the largest clinical trials on the Alzheimer prevention. And I'm very excited to say that the data shows that he proved, not just with questionnaires or, hey, how you doing? Or the wife says he's so much better.
Yeah.
They actually did hard data,
biomarkers
in the blood, imaging of the brain, other things, a comprehensive program where people, did get better. And if you look at a drug and you expect a drug to do that, there's no drug on the market that does that, right?
Isn't that because they can't target 50 things with a drug? That's too broad a scope.
Exactly, and that's why it is so important that we listen and keep an open mind. Yeah. We're not saying you need to do this, you should do this. Everybody can decide for themselves if this resonates, and if it does, you have the power to do something about it. You control what you eat, you control your bedtime, you control the people that you hang out with, Having that control is so powerful, Steve.
Yeah, right. Dr. Kessler, it is so fun to do this with you. This is an invaluable resource to the community. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Before we wrap up, I want to talk to you about something important. Have you ever stood in the grocery aisle overwhelmed by choices, wondering which products are truly good for you and the planet? In today's world, it's becoming increasingly difficult to find food that's not only nutritious, but also ethically sourced and environmentally friendly. Many of us want to make healthier choices, but the sheer amount of conflicting information out there can be paralyzing. Every day you delay making the switch to organic, you're potentially exposing yourself and your loved ones to harmful pesticides and GMOs. Not to mention you're missing out on the superior taste and nutritional benefits of organic produce. The longer we collectively hesitate, the more damage is done to our health and our planet. That place is Nassau Health Food Store. We've done the hard work for you, curating the best organic and natural products so you don't have to second-guess your choices. From farm fresh produce to pantry staples, from supplements to natural beauty products, we've got everything you need to live your healthiest, most natural life. Visit us today and experience the peace of mind that comes with shopping at Nassau Health Food Store at Amelia Island. Your body, your taste buds, and the planet will thank you. We're located at 833 TJ Corson Road, Fernandina Beach, Florida 32034, United States. We're open Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Saturday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Can't make it to the store? Check out our online shop at www.nassauhealthfood.com. Thanks for tuning in to the Nassau Health Food Store podcast. Until next time, eat well, live naturally, and stay healthy.